ESE Pedia. General Studies video lectures, notes and practice. Question sets for engineering service examination, and other conducted examinations. In this video we had discussed a subtopic of energy and environment, which is environmental impact assessment here. 15. Environmental clearance procedure in India. As the utility of ESE became clear, there was need to establish project clearance procedure. The first step in that direction was to define the ESE process. The ESE process in India is made up of the following phases: screening, scoping and consideration of alternatives, baseline data collection, impact prediction, assessment of alternatives, delineation of mitigation measures and environmental impact statement, public hearing, environment management plan M, decision making, monitoring the clearance conditions. The Ministry of Environment and Forests (MEF) has published guidelines for different sectors, which outline the significant issues to be addressed in the ESE studies. In general, the following impacts of the project need to be assessed. 1. Are the changes in ambient levels and ground level concentrations due to total emissions from point, line and area sources, effects on soils, materials, vegetation, and human health are to be assessed. 2. Noise. The changes in ambient levels, due to noise generated from equipment and movement of vehicles, and their impact on fauna and human health are to be assessed. 3. Water. The availability to competing users, changes in quality, sediment transport and ingress of saline water are to be assessed. 4. Land. The changes in land use and drainage pattern, land quality including effects of waste disposal, shoreline/riverbank, and their stability are to be assessed. 5. Biological. The level of deforestation/tree cutting and shrinkage of animal habitat, the impact on fauna and flora including aquatic species, if any due to contaminants/pollutants, and the impact on rare and endangered species, endemic species, and migratory paths/route of animals are to be assessed, as also the impact on breeding and nesting grounds. 6. Socio-economic. The impact on the local community including demographic changes, economic status, human health and increased traffic are to be assessed. For every project, possible alternatives need to be identified and environmental attributes compared. The alternatives identified must cover project location and process technologies, including the no project option, and the alternatives need to be ranked for selection on the basis of optimum economic benefits to the community at large. Once the alternatives have been reviewed, a mitigation plan supplemented with an environmental management plan (EMP) needs to be drawn up for the selected option to guide the proponent towards environmental improvements. Note that the EMP is a crucial input to monitoring the clearance conditions, and therefore, it must contain the details of monitoring. A ESE report, thus, needs to provide clear information to the decision maker on the different environmental scenarios without the project, with the project and with project alternatives. This includes uncertainties. MEF has issued sectoral guidelines on environmental appraisal questionnaires for obtaining the clearance and seeks the following documents: filled in application form as per Schedule 2 of your notification. A summary of the project/feasibility report 1 copy. ESE/EMP report 20 copies. Risk analysis on on-site emergency preparedness plan 20 copies in case of projects involving hazardous substances. Site clearance from MEF for site-specific projects mentioned in the notification. Consent to establish from SPCB. NAC from the local authorities, for example, district collector. Commitment regarding the availability of water and electricity from the appropriate agencies. Approval of the Chief Controller of Explosives under the Petroleum Act and rules for layout and storage of hazardous substances, and from the Directorate of Industrial Safety and Health under the Factories Act and rules. Comments/observations/recommendations of the Chief Wildlife Warden in case a wildlife habitat/migration path exists within 25 kilometers of project site. Comprehensive summary rehabilitation plan, where displacement of more than 1,000 people is anticipated. Copy of the application forwarded to the state government, in case of diversion of forest land. Copy of the application forwarded to the state government in case the ESE notification applies. Clearance from the Airport Authority of India, if applicable. Details of the public hearing conducted by SPCB and copies of the advertisements issued for public hearing. Filled in environmental appraisal questionnaires issued by MEF, along with the attachments mentioned in the questionnaire. MEF has issued different questionnaires for different projects, and the law requires that the public must be informed and consulted on a proposed development after the completion of a report. Anyone is entitled to have access to the executive summary of ESE, and the affected persons such as bona fide local residents, local associations, environmental groups active in the area, and any other person located at the project site/sites of displacement must be given an opportunity to make oral/written suggestions to the State Pollution Control Board SPCB. The decision-making process involves consultation between the project proponent assisted by a consultant and the impact assessment authority assisted by an expert group, if necessary. The decision on environmental clearance is arrived at through a number of steps including evaluation of ESE and the Environmental Management Plan (EM). In India, the project proponent during the project planning stage decides the type of projects, that is, new establishment, expansion or modernization. Later, the project proponent prepares a detailed project report/feasibility report and submits to the authorities concerned the executive summary containing the project details and findings of the ESE study, which is to be made available to the concerned public. Where a proponent is required to obtain environmental clearance, the Impact Assessment Agency evaluates and assesses the report. In this process, the project proponent is given a chance to present his or her proposal. If the project is accepted, the ESE prepares a set of recommendations and conditions for its implementation based on this assessment. Environmental clearance conditions and recommendations of ESE are made available to the public on request through SPCB and through a website. http://info.nic.in. During the implementation and operation of the project, the ESE is also responsible for the environmental monitoring process. Revised environmental clearance procedure in India. As the utility of ESE became clear, there was need to establish project clearance procedure. In 1994 a clearance procedure was issued that followed ESE notification 1994. There were some constraints in the procedure that include burdensome procedure, disproportionate details sought with applications, delay in appraisal meetings, time-consuming and requiring undue effort, reopening of technical issues during various stages of appraisal, poor quality of ESE studies by consultants, delays by other concerned agencies. Due to these reasons, re-engineering was done of the ESE process implementation based on project chosen. Background of this re-engineering is that MEF conducted a review on previous ESE process which is comprehensive under the Environmental Management Capacity Building Project in 2001. Reformation in investment approvals and implementation procedures was set up by central government with the help of Govindarajan Committee. Due to consistency in studies with both the organizations, there was a strong necessity for reforms in the ESE notification 1994, objectives of ESE notification 2006, to formulate a transparent, decentralized and efficient regulatory mechanism to incorporate necessary environmental safeguards at planning stage, involve stakeholders in the public consultation process, identify developmental projects based on impact potential instead of the investment criteria. It also stated that all new projects listed in schedule, expansion and modernization of existing projects and those activities that show change in product mix require environmental clearance before setting up. B. According to the 1994 clearance procedure, the MEF has issued sectoral guidelines on environmental appraisal questionnaires and needed following documents. 1. Filled in application form as per Schedule 2 of your notification. 2. A summary of the project/feasibility report 1 copy. 3. ESE/EMP report 20 copies. 4. Risk analysis on on-site emergency preparedness plan 20 copies in case of projects involving hazardous substances. 5. Site clearance from MEF for site-specific projects mentioned in the ESE notification. 6. Consent to establish from SPCB. 7. NAC from the local authorities, for example, district collector. 8. Commitment regarding the availability of water and electricity from the appropriate agencies. 9. Approval of the Chief Controller of Explosives under the Petroleum Act and rules for layout and storage of hazardous substances, and from the Directorate of Industrial Safety and Health under the Factories Act and rules. 10. Comments/observations/recommendations of the Chief Wildlife Warden in case a wildlife habitat/migration path exists within 25 kilometers of project site. 11. Comprehensive summary rehabilitation plan, where displacement of more than 1,000 people is anticipated. 12. Copy of the application forwarded to the state government, in case of diversion of forest land. 13. Copy of the application forwarded to the state government in case the ESE notification applies. 14. Clearance from the Airport Authority of India, if applicable. 15. Details of the public hearing conducted by SPCB and copies of the advertisements issued for public hearing. 16. Filled-in environmental appraisal questionnaires issued by MEF, along with the attachments mentioned in the questionnaire. C. Differences between the notification 1994 and 2006. NONAC for ESE. Revised schedule based on potential impacts instead of investment criteria. Categorization into A and B1, B2 given in Annex 4. Category at central level. Category B1, B2 at state level with exceptions. Checklist information in Form 1/Form 1A. Scoping to determine TORs for RIA, if required. Finality of TORs. Scoping stage incorporates site clearance. No separate site clearance is required. Public consultation structured. To be conducted by SPCB and presided by DM within 45 days. Proceedings to be videographed. MEF to intervene if not held in time. Time limits with consequences at each stage. State-level Environment Impact Assessment Authority (CR), expert appraisal. Committees AC are also required. 16. State-level Environment Impact Assessment Authority. CR is an independent body, members of which should be notified by MEF on receiving nominations from all concerned states and DOTs. Chairman and other members shall be experts fulfilling the eligibility criteria given in Appendix 6 of Notification 2006. Chairman shall be an expert in the process. Member Secretary familiar with environmental laws shall be a serving officer of the state government. MEF must notify CRs within a time limit of 30 days from the date of receipt of nominations. Time period for authority defined 3 years. Decision of the authority shall be on the basis of consensus, and lastly there would not be any funding from MEF. Steps in prior environmental clearance process include screening, scoping, public consultation, and appraisal. The environmental clearance procedure was thoroughly restructured through issuance of said environmental clearance notification by MEF. New Delhi for making the environmental clearance procedure more transparent, less time-consuming and decentralized as much as possible. Under this restructured environmental clearance notification, the industrial/developmental activities, which may cause serious spatial and temporal environmental impacts, have been scheduled to obtain prior environmental clearance. And also it has been decided that such activities shall be classified as Category A or Category B type projects. The existing expert appraisal committees at central level at Ministry of Environment Forests, New Delhi, shall screen, scope, appraise Category A projects. Each state shall constitute State Environment Impact Assessment Authority (CR) and the State Expert Appraisal Committee (SAC) for carry out similar environmental procedure at state level. The CR shall grant or refuse environmental clearance to any B-type project after screening, scoping, appraisal of environmental clearance applications at state level. 17. Conclusion. In short, an environmental impact assessment is an integral part of any project planning, and must be understood with respect to the requirement of each project. A project proponent has to first determine whether the activity requires environmental clearance, and undertake ESE studies to meet the requirements of MEF. In case of joint venture projects with a foreign company and/or for seeking funds from an international financial institution, an environment impact statement has to conform to the environmental assessment guidelines. You must have a fairly good knowledge of, and must be capable of anticipating, the requirements and implications on project schedules and cost. It is an inescapable fact today that a report needs to be prepared in a manner that conforms to national and international regulations and guidelines. It must be seen as a proactive, rather than a purely conformist document.